In 1986, James Cameron didn't just make a sequel, he redefined what sci-fi horror could look like on screen. Aliens wasn't built on flashy computers or digital trickery. It was powered by sweat, steel, latex, hydraulic monsters, and a filmmaking team willing to crawl through smoke-filled tunnels to create a nightmare that felt real. Every xenomorph you see, every flamethrower burst, every scream echoing through the colony's dark corridors, all of it was crafted by hand. Makers of Aliens 2 delivered one of cinema's most terrifying worlds using practical effects so advanced and so ambitious, they still hold up nearly 40 years later. So let's step into the shadows of the set and discover exactly how the filmmakers created every terrifying moment. In Aliens, 1986, one of the most shocking moments comes during the climax, when the alien queen drives her tail straight through Bishop and tears him violently in half. What looks horrifying on screen was actually a brilliantly engineered combination of practical effects, prosthetics, and animatronics. James Cameron and Stan Winston wanted this entire kill to feel real, physical, and brutal. So instead of relying on camera tricks, they built everything mechanically. When the Queen's tail appears to puncture Bishop's chest, Lance Henriksen wore a special rubber chest plate fitted with a flattened tail end. As the camera rolled, a hidden wire yanked the tail backward with force, creating the illusion that the Queen had stabbed him clean through. Next came the lift, the moment where the Queen hoists Bishop into the air. Henriksen was secured in a harness beneath his costume, while the rigid tail was attached to a mechanical arm controlled by off-screen puppeteers. Through perfectly timed pulls and precise coordination, it looked like the Queen was genuinely suspending Bishop like a helpless rag doll. But the most unbelievable effect is the one everyone remembers, Bishop being ripped in half. For that, the crew created a hyper-realistic full-body dummy of Henriksen. Inside the dummy was a mechanical separation system designed to split the torso in an instant. With a single cue, the upper and lower body tore apart in one clean, violent motion. Thick android blood, actually a milk-based milky fluid, splattered everywhere. This entire sequence looks like one continuous moment of carnage, but it was actually shot using multiple rigs, several different prosthetics, separate dummies, and complex timing. Every cut was seamless, making Bishop's destruction one of the most legendary practical effects moments in sci-fi history. The alien queen in Aliens looks so massive and lifelike on screen that modern audiences often assume she was created using early CGI. But the truth is far more impressive. The Queen was a completely practical, full-sized, mechanically operated puppet engineered by James Cameron, Stan Winston, and a team of creature effects legends. Cameron and Winston envisioned her as a towering, insect-inspired monarch, terrifying, elegant, and unmistakably maternal. To test that concept, the team first built a crude prototype in a studio parking lot using nothing more than metal poles, ski rods, and black garbage bags. It wasn't meant to look pretty, it was only for testing scale and range of motion. Yet Cameron was so blown away by how intimidating even that rough silhouette looked that he immediately wrote a dedicated Queen sequence into the final script. From there, the real creation process began, a multi-stage build that blended art, engineering, and pure imagination. The first step was sculpting small clay maquettes. These handcrafted models established everything: the Queen's elongated crest, her ribbed exoskeleton, the layered jaw structure, the iconic double mouth, and the biomechanical patterns across her skin. These maquettes acted as the blueprint for the full-size creature. Mold makers used them to construct every major component of the final puppet. Because the Queen's proportions were enormous, over 14 feet tall, the team even created a lightweight test suit for a performer. This helped them study how a creature that big would shift its weight, walk, turn, and balance. Watching a human mimic the Queen's movements gave animators and puppeteers a realistic reference for timing and motion flow. When the full build began, the Queen's body was constructed from polyurethane foam to keep it as lightweight as possible. Her head, neck, and facial elements were driven by heavy hydraulic and servomotor systems that powered the jaws, lips, inner mouth, and subtle muscle-like twitches. And bringing her to life required an army. On set, 14 to 16 puppeteers operated the queen at all times. 2 performers were physically inside the giant forearms, moving them like oversized creature limbs. Others crouched around the legs, animating them through rod puppetry. The massive tail was controlled using fishing lines, pulleys, and tension rigs. Meanwhile, another group of operators, hidden off camera, manipulated the hydraulics that powered her head and facial movements. All these separate systems had to synchronize perfectly to make the queen feel like a single, living organism. Every snarl, tilt, lunge, and full-body motion was a coordinated dance between more than a dozen artists working in perfect harmony. This combination of practical puppetry, mechanical engineering, and innovative creature design is why the Alien Queen remains one of the most complex and unforgettable practical movie monsters ever created. Even today, nearly 40 years later, she still looks more real than many digital creatures made decades later. In Aliens, when Ripley descends back into the hive to rescue Newt, the terrifying environment you see on screen, walls pulsing with organic textures, steam hissing in every corner, the air thick with smoke and slime, and an ocean of alien eggs stretching into darkness, NM was not CGI. Almost everything in this sequence was a massive, fully practical set built from the ground up by Stan Winston's team. The entire egg chamber was designed to feel like a living organism, so the art department layered the floors, walls, and ceiling with foam latex, fiberglass sheets, translucent gel molds, and hand-painted organic ridges. Dozens of eggs, along with the queen's enormous egg sac, were installed physically on the set. Inside each egg were hidden tubes, slime bags, and small pump systems that allowed operators to make goo pulse out or ooze down the shells exactly on cue whenever the camera needed the environment to breathe. Ripley's iconic yellow power loader might look like a fully functioning industrial exosuit, but it was actually a brilliantly designed practical prop built in several different sizes and configurations. Stan Winston's studio constructed a full-scale outer shell, a towering mechanical frame that stood on set like a real machine. Inside this shell was a cockpit rig where Sigourney Weaver sat for close-ups, gripping controls and reacting as if she were operating the loader. But the loader wasn't a working robot. Its arms, claws, and hydraulics were puppeted from off-camera using cables, rods, mechanical linkages, and hidden joints. Multiple puppeteers worked together to pull off each movement. For heavy action moments, like when Ripley swings the loader at the Queen, the filmmakers used miniature versions of both the power loader and the Queen. These miniatures, some at 1:2 or 1:6 scale, were used for wide shots and dangerous movements. Through tight editing, smart framing, and perfectly matched lighting, the full-scale prop and the miniature footage blended so smoothly that audiences never suspected the switch. Sigourney Weaver's performance sold the illusion. She acted inside a non-functional cockpit while puppeteers made the machine move around her. Low-angle shots, industrial detailing, grease stains, bolts, and scratches added weight and realism to every frame. The power loader remains one of sci-fi's most famous practical machines. The facehugger attack in Aliens is pure practical effects mastery. Stan Winston's team built around 15 different facehugger models: dead ones, dissected ones, stunt versions, and hyper-articulated hero puppets capable of full leg, finger, and tail movement. Each facehugger was sculpted in foam latex and rubber, then coated in translucent paint and slime gel to give it an organic, wet look. To make the creature scuttle across surfaces, the team used lightweight versions fitted with tiny wheels and a pull string mechanism. When puppeteers yanked the string, the facehugger seemed to sprint across the floor. For jump attacks, Cameron used a clever trick. The puppet was pulled backward by a wire, and then the footage was played in reverse, making it appear as if the facehugger had leaped forward toward Ripley. In the colony battle sequence of Aliens, the sight of dozens of xenomorphs swarming through smoke-filled corridors looks like something that must have come out of a computer. But not a single one of those creatures was CGI. Every alien you see on screen was created through a meticulous combination of full bodysuits, partial torso puppets, animatronic heads, rod puppetry, and old-school camera tricks crafted by Stan Winston's studio. For the drone xenomorphs, the effects team built multiple full-body creature suits, each sculpted in foam latex and rubber to maintain flexibility and range of motion. These suits were painted with glossy black layers, mixed with slime gels and wet-look coatings to give the creatures their signature dripping organic appearance. The heads were made using a hard outer dome, and for close-up moments, the team added cable-controlled animatronic mechanisms inside the skull. So, whenever you see a xenomorph's jaw split open and the inner jaw shoot out like a piston, that movement is entirely practical, powered by compressed air systems and operated by off-camera puppeteers pulling synchronized controls. To make the xenomorphs feel fast, vicious, and animalistic, the filmmakers used a wide variety of performance techniques. In many medium shots, suit performers did the crawling, climbing, and attacking themselves, relying on the suit's flexibility and their own physicality. But when more unnatural or insect-like movements were needed, rod puppets and cable rigs took over, allowing technicians to twitch limbs, drag tails, or scuttle legs at angles no human performer could naturally achieve. The dropship crash is one of the most technically demanding sequences in Aliens. After the Marines' disastrous firefight, Ripley and the survivors wait for extraction, only for the arriving dropship to spiral out of control and explode. Because CGI didn't exist for such shots in 1986, Cameron turned to large-scale miniatures. The team built a meticulously detailed model of the UD-4L Cheyenne dropship and mounted it on a motion control rig. This rig allowed the miniature to descend, rotate, and crash with perfectly repeatable movements, which the camera could track with equal precision. Interior shots of Pilot Pharaoh being attacked were filmed on a full-size cockpit set with a real stunt performer in the alien suit. But the moment the ship veers out of control, the film cuts to the miniature, which was rigged with tiny pyrotechnics, smoke canisters, spark units, and internal explosive charges. When the dropship collides with the landing pad, hidden explosive units beneath the miniature pad trigger a controlled blast. The effects team recorded separate passes: smoke, fire, debris, sparks, then composited them optically to create the final seamless crash. Cameron also had the editors match the lighting, timing, and movement between the cockpit shot and the miniature exterior frame by frame, so the transition felt flawless. Safety was a huge concern. The explosives had to detonate at precise milliseconds, and the camera was shielded behind thick protective barriers. The result was a jaw-dropping crash scene created entirely through practical craftsmanship, miniature engineering, pyrotechnics, and skillful compositing. Even 40 years later, it remains a masterclass in practical visual effects. Another reason James Cameron is considered the king of physical, in-camera filmmaking. Aliens stands as a masterclass in practical creature design and atmospheric cinematography. From the towering 14-foot queen to the explosive colony battle, everything in this movie was built with real materials, real puppetry, and real danger. That is exactly why the film still feels alive. Every shadow, every movement, and every terrifying silhouette was performed, not simulated. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the making and behind the scenes of Aliens 2, make sure to stick around because we're just getting started. Filmmaking history is full of secrets, and I'll be bringing them all to you, one movie at a time.